Hi there, my name's Zach, and in this video we are going to walk through the trail guide, which tells you all the information you need to know about how to tackle any trail. To start, I'm going to read this first section, Tackling a Trail, and then we'll go from there. Each trail has landmarks connected by signposts. Your job is to fill in all the landmarks with words using the signposts as guides. Every landmark has a clue, which tells you the landmark's length. The order of the clues doesn't match the order of the landmarks on the trail, so use the map of the trail to get the lay of the land. Enter your guesses to fill in every landmark. If you are feeling stuck, use your GPS to get some helpful info. A completed trail will include a panorama, a compound word or phrase that is formed by the first and last landmarks, known as the trailheads. The trail's name will relate to its panorama. All right, so that was a lot of information. Why don't we take a look at all of this in practice with one of these tutorials. So this is an example of a trail. This tutorial's trail has a name called Not Store-Bought. And we have two main sections. We have the trail on the left, and we have a list of clues on the right. The trail is made up of two main parts, these big boxes and these little orange T's. The big boxes are landmarks, and the orange T's are signposts. So landmarks are separated by signposts, and every landmark has a clue. So in this case, this trail has 6 landmarks, and we have 6 clues here. And the thing that I want to point out is on the ordering of the clues is that the order of the clues does not match the order in the trail. They're sorted in different ways. Specifically, they're ordered by the clue text, so you can see this A, C, H, S, S, and they're also ordered by larger clues first. In this case, the clues all tell you the length of the words, so the clues in this trail all correspond to 4-letter words. The landmarks are going to be 4-letter words. So if we gave this a try, we can start by looking at some words that we might know. But here in this main thing, we have an input box where we can type a word, hit enter, and get a result of whether it's in the trail or not, or it will show up in the trail. And our goal is to fill in all the landmarks for the trail. So why don't we get started with this herb burned in smudging rituals. That is sage. And you can see we get a little response, and we see it appear on the trail, and it gets filled in as the clue. So now we're in a state where what this is telling us is we have a relationship between this landmark and its neighbors. And now we can get a little bit into the signposts. So the signposts in this case are all the same. There are later ones which we'll go over, but in this case they're all the same. They're all these orange T's. And you can hover over the T's to get information over the signposts if they change. In this case, they're all T's, which are trades. And trades are telling you if you change one letter, you can get from one landmark to the next. So this is saying if I change one letter in sage, we don't know what it is yet, we'll get to its neighbor. Also, if we change one letter in sage, we'll get to this neighbor over here. So if we look a little bit at what we have, we can see if any of the clues match to being able to change one letter to get a new word. So we can see, for example, 4-letter word for sorcerer. If I change the S at the start of sage to an M, I can get mage. So that's taking it in this direction. If we can keep going, we can say created something is that you made something. So there I changed the G to a D. So we get made. Now we're in an interesting situation. The trail has a start and an end. So this is the start of the trail, and it snakes back and forth to the end. And the starting landmark and the ending landmark are special. They're called the trailheads. And they together form what's called a panorama for the trail. So this and this are going to combine together to make something that is hinted a little bit by the trail's name. So in this case, this trail's name is called Not Store-Bought. So something made is going to sort of hint at the idea of not store-bought or in that ballpark. So in this case, you might be able to deduce that that is, in this case, handmade. So we can look at the clues, which one that's going to match to. In this case, appendage with over 24 bones. There's a lot of bones in your hands. So we can say hand, and then we get handmade. We can keep going. If we smooth something, we could sand it. There I'm changing just the H to an S. And now last thing is sensible. So from this direction, we can change the G to an N. From this direction, we can change the D to an E. And in both cases, we get the word sane. So when we complete a trail, in this case, we've filled in all the landmarks, and all the landmarks change according to the signposts to go from the first part of the panorama, hand, all the way down to the end, made, to make handmade. When we solve it, we get a little bit of information in the trail notes that tells you some information related to the trail. In this case, it's telling us that we're only using trades for the signpost directions. Other trails may use more diverse set, and pointing out that the clues are not in the order in which they appear in the trail, so it's up to you to deduce which goes where. And the panorama for this trail was handmade, which relates to the trail's name, not store-bought. Another little thing to point out is in the bottom right, there's a little information here of the info kiosk, which you can click on, that provides information about the signpost directions and a little reminder that the clue order does not match to the trail order. And a link that if you're feeling lost can get you back to the trail guide. There's an option in a sort of pro tip. If you don't want this info kiosk to appear in your account page under preferences, you can choose to hide this if you feel this is in your way. But we can see we're getting a little bit of hint at some other options for the signposts. So let's go back to the trail guide and take a look at other signpost directions. So this section tells you about the different options of the signpost directions, and they're telling you how to transform one landmark into its neighbor. So in the one we saw before, they were all trades. So on one side, one word, if I change one letter, I get to its neighbor. There are some other options though, and they're all centered around the mnemonic step. So we're going to go through them right now, step by step. And we'll start with one we haven't seen yet, called S. So S stands for sort, and sort rearranges the existing letters. So we can see this is an example of a landmark that is the word cat, and what I can do is I can rearrange those letters, swap the A and the C to get the word act. Similarly, I can take the word pause and rearrange it to get the word swap. In this case, I'm completely reversing all those letters. You can think of this similar to Scrabble, where you are recognizing that you have a set of tiles or a set of letters, and you need to rearrange them somehow to get another word, according to the clues that you have. There's a note at the bottom of this section, but I'll just point it out now, that signpost directions are reversible, meaning you could come across these in different ways. These are being displayed to you as examples from left to right, but you might come across act first in the way you solve a trail, and then you'll see an open sort landmark, open sort signpost, and you have to interpret that you're going to have to rearrange the A and the C to get C and A. So all of these directions are reversible in that you might interact them in different ways. The T in step stands for trade, which we have seen part of, but it can get a little more complex. So this was an example we saw of a trade where we are swapping the one letter. So in this case, we're changing the T for an R to get car. However, it will signal to you if you have to trade multiple letters. So we can get some larger trades. So in this case, this is a double trade where we're trading 2 letters. In this case, we have the word meow. And if we change 2 letters, in this case the M and the E, to S and H, we get the word show. And finally, we can have the largest trade possible is a triple trade, where we are changing 3 letters at once. In this case, if we have the word feline and we change the F to an S, the L to an R, and the I to an E, we get serene. The next letter in the mnemonic is E, and E stands for echo, and echo is telling you that the two landmarks rhyme with each other. So for example, cat can rhyme with bat, or cat could rhyme with chat, or cat could rhyme with mat. So the main thing with an echo is telling you to find the rhyme. Finally, P stands for pack, and pack toggles letters plus or minus, leaving other letters unchanged. Similar to trades, you can have large packs up to 3 letters. Let's go through that. So this is an example where I have a single pack, so I'm adding one letter. In this case, I am adding an O between the C and the A to get coat. One aspect of packs is that when you come across them, you're going to have to deduce whether, in your case, the direction that you come across them, whether you're adding that letter or removing that letter. So I might come across coat first and have to discover that I have to remove the O to get cat, but in both cases, you can think of that one letter as getting toggled on and off, or you're adding, removing that same letter. You can have larger packs, similar to trades. This is another example of going in the opposite direction, of coming across a larger word that's getting smaller. We have the word meow. If I remove the E, I can get mo. Double packs, we can add 2 letters at once. In this case, I'm adding an H and an R to go from cat to chart. And in the opposite direction, if I remove the E and L from feline, I get fine. And finally, the largest pack is triple packs, where I'm adding 3 letters at once. If I tack on a TLE at the end of cat, I get cattle. And in a similar direction, if I have a larger word and removing, I am removing the E, the L, and the other E to get fin. So similar point is that the way that we come across the packs are going to determine whether we are going to add or remove letters. Okay, so that is a look at all the possible signposts. So why don't we jump into the next tutorial and see a few more options here. So this tutorial has the name Up and Away. We can see there are 7 landmarks, so there are 7 clues here. And we have some new signposts. So we have the trade, change 1 letter. We have a triple pack, so we're going to add or remove 3 letters between these 2 landmarks. And then we have a bunch of echoes, so a bunch of things that are going to rhyme. So first, let's take a look at what the signposts are signaling to us just by the clues and the signposts available. So this triple pack is telling us we need to add or remove 3 letters, which means we're going to need to find clues that allow us to do that. And the only way that we can do that is finding clues of a difference of length 3. So there is only one clue that's large enough for that, and that's this first clue that's 6 letters long, and then one of these 3-letter clues is going to be its neighbor. So we don't know which. So we might start with this 6-letter clue, and that is curve label in a graph showing economic equilibrium. So you might be familiar with the main curves in economics are supply and demand. So we could try demand. That doesn't seem to be in the trail. Let's try supply. Okay, so that added to part of this triple pack. So now we know if we remove 3 letters, and we know it's removed 3 letters in this case because we don't have a clue that's 9 letters long. So if we remove 3 letters from supply, we're going to get a word that relates to one of these 4 clues. We don't know which one yet. So why don't we try taking a look at some other clues. Maybe we're having trouble discovering which 3 letters we're going to have to remove. So let's take a look at some other clues. So we might jump into other sections and take a look at this, for example, dessert eaten to celebrate a March 14th holiday. So March 14th is 314, which is the start of pie, and a dessert that you might eat on Pie Day is pie. So we see that that's one of the parts in this little echo chain. So we can see supply, pie, things are going to rhyme in this way. So let's take a look at the other clues thinking in that way. So see ya, in that kind of rhyming scheme, could be by. Shade of blue, well, another sort of rhyming version of that could be sky blue. We notice, though, that in this case, that's not where sky shows up in this particular trail. It does seem to rhyme, but that's not how this is clued. In this case, we have a trade connected to it. However, we have revealed that we have part of the panorama. So sky something is going to relate to up and away. So we might be able to deduce that that is sky high, which fills in this clue. And now we are left with a few left. We have resist, which in sort of the rhyming scheme of supply, buy, pie, high, defy, fits in there nicely. And now we're left with one more. If I change one letter of sky, or if I remove 3 letters from supply, I'm going to get something in here. And we have blank versus blank, a wordless comic strip published in Mag Magazine, which in this case is spy versus spy. So we've solved that one, and we get the panorama for this trail being sky high. Let's look a little bit at the trail notes. Notice the pack direction toggles 3 letters. All signpost directions are reversible, meaning they can be interpreted both forward and backward along the trail. And if you need some help, use the GPS to get information about unsolved landmarks. So we haven't used the GPS yet. We will read about that next and then take a look at how that would work. Finally, the panorama for this trail is sky high, a nod to its name, up and away. Cool. So the panorama is always going to relate to the name of the trail. But let's jump back and take a look at how the GPS works. Using your GPS, if you get stuck along a trail, you can use your GPS to get helpful information. So what your GPS is going to do is it's going to reveal to you information about landmarks that you haven't yet solved. And it's going to give you a couple of different options for the information it provides. So one thing it will do is it'll show you the connection between an unsolved landmark and its clue. So it will point out exactly which clue this landmark goes to. It will also parse the signposts to you, so it will give you some information about how to interpret different signposts. And finally, if you have exhausted all of the options of these kinds of GPS hints, it can fully reveal some landmarks that you're having trouble with. So let's take a look at how that would be in practice with the trail we just went over. So why don't we reset this trail, and let's try again. And let's try to get our toehold again of that we had maybe pi as the starting point. And let's say we're still confused now about how to proceed. And we've solved part of the trail, but we have these connected signposts to things that we've solved. So what the GPS is going to do is going to provide you hints to things related to what you've solved. So in this case, if you click this, it will give you a little information that there's a little bit of hint that you could get out of this signpost. And if you hover over it, it tells you that for echoes, it's going to tell you the start of the words. So in this case, it's telling me one of the words that I'm connected to starts with D, and the other one starts with P. We have the one that starts with P, but we now know that this landmark starts with D and rhymes with pi. Let's say maybe we're still having trouble. We could hit the hint again, and it's going to reveal the other connected signpost to what we've solved. In this case, we have that this was high, sky high, so we have the P, but we know that this starts with H. If we're still confused, we can hit the GPS, and now there are no signposts connected to what we've solved. So what instead it's going to do is going to reveal to you a connection between a landmark and its clue. So if we do the GPS again, it's going to say this landmark is associated with this clue, particularly Sia. So we know that this clue, Sia, because of what we've started with, is going to rhyme with pi. So we might be able to input here that was by. And we know here, rhymes with pi, starts with D. We could be able to get that to be defy. We could say this is high, and we could get sky high. We could use the GPS again. In this case, it's going to reveal this trade to us and tell us that the second letter is going to change between these two landmarks. So in this case, that was that the K is going to become a P to be spy. And now we have a few more cases where we can use the GPS, where we can use it and it'll tell us how to interpret this pack. This is telling us that the L, P, and U are going to be toggled between these two. So in this case, we know we're adding. So we're adding an L, P, and U to go from spy to something. Maybe we're still confused. We need another hint. We have this as well, that it is going to start with S, because we know the word here starts with B. So ultimately we know for this landmark, it rhymes with by, it starts with S, and if we add L, P, and U to spy, we get this word. So those are all the possible hints that we can give to this landmark, and now we've exhausted all the possible hints that we can give except fully revealing the landmark, which is why this GPS button has turned red to signal to you if you use it one more time, it's going to reveal to you the landmarks rather than giving you hints with signposts and connections between landmarks and clues. So if we use the GPS one more time, it fills in the very last word, being supply. So that's a look at the hint system for a trail. It's always available to you, and the main intention is to try to nudge you in the right direction. So it's trying to build off of the amount of the trail that you've already solved and sort of point you in the right direction. And if you get to the point where you are completely stumped and have used up all the hints possible, it can reveal things that you've found too confusing. All right, that is a look at the GPS. The next thing I want to talk about is sharing your travels. So in this section, we talk a little bit about the travelogue, which is a feature that you've seen probably in other puzzles, where when you complete a trail, you can share your travelogue with other people, and it is a collection of emojis that describes how you solved the trail. Specifically, it's going to tell you in emojis the order in which you solved the trail, and it's going to show the landmarks as these straight pins and the trail heads as these push pins, and signal when you used the GPS, either using it to interpret signposts or the connections with that sort of hint style, or if you used the red version and fully revealed any landmarks. So the main thing is telling you a little hint at the order in which you solve the trail and a way to share your travels. One aspect of the travelogue is it does give you a little bit of information of how you solve the trail, and for more experienced travelers, you can get what is called a perfect trek by tackling a trail without using your GPS and discovering the panorama first. These achievements will be prominently displayed on your travelogue. So these are two separate things that you can do when solving a trail, and if you do both of them, you get what's called a perfect trek. So one aspect of a perfect trek is that you solve the trail without using your GPS, so you don't use any hints. And also you discover the panorama first. So either you solve the first landmark and the last landmark, or the last landmark then the first landmark, in either order. So let's take a look at how that looks for this very last tutorial, called A Little of Everything. So the name is A Little of Everything, and we see we have 10 landmarks and 10 clues, and we have a bunch of different kinds of signposts in this case. We got some double trades, we got a few packs, we got some echoes, and we got a sort. So we might go through this and we might be able to discover that, let's say we get combine, a three-letter for combine could be mix, and now we have a case where we've gotten half of the panorama first from the get-go. So something mix is going to hint at a little of everything. In this case, it's a little self-referential. the first part of the panorama is trail. So get a little notice that we got the panorama first, and in this case, the panorama for this trail is trail mix, which is sort of hinted at a little of everything. Let's keep going. We know at the bottom here that this little train is going to be 3-letter words, and those are only these 2 3-letter words, because trades don't change the length of landmarks. So if we change 1 letter in mix, we get either an equipment brought to a yoga class or upper limit. So if we change I to A, we get max, upper limit, and then if we change X to T, we get mat, equipment brought to a yoga class. Maybe we're a little confused about how to proceed with this pack. It's a little confusing of where we're going to add a letter. We do know we're going to add a letter because there are no 2-letter words, and actually specifically in trails, there are never any landmarks that are 2 letters. It's at least 3 letters. If we type in a 2-letter word, we get that it's too short of an option. So let's take a look in the other direction. Something that rhymes with trail. Well, we see right here, slow critter, 5-letter word. That sounds like a snail to me. So now we know if we remove a letter, again, we don't have any 6-letter clues. If we remove a letter from snail, we're going to get another word. So I can see sail and nail. Let's take a look at what our clues signal to us. So rail car, shopping center, that doesn't really sound like snail or sail or nail. Stumble, travel by boat, that sounds like sail. Okay, and now we have a double trade. That sounds kind of hard. Let's try this other direction, take a look at it again. Mat, we're going to add a letter to get some sort of new landmark. Travel by mail, that doesn't sound great. Stumble, shopping center sounds good. If I add an R, I can get mart. And now we're getting somewhere. If I reorder all of these letters, I get a new landmark. So I can see a rail car sounds good. That's a tram. And now we have another double trade. But we know both of these landmarks are going to rhyme. So stumble and travel by mail are going to rhyme. And if we do double trades from these, we get to them as well. So you can think about it a little bit. The answer in this case is trip and ship. If I change the A and M to IP, I get trip. If I change the A and L to SP, HP, I get ship. So if I go trip, ship, and there we go. I get a little perfect trek because I solved the trail with the panorama first and I didn't use any hints. Let's take a look at the trail notes. This trail uses all the signpost directions: sort, trade, echo, and pack. It sure does. This trail's panorama is trail mix since it has, quote, a little of everything. If you are interested in tackling more trails at your own pace, you consider subscribing to check out the backlog. All right. That is a look at solving trails. There's a few more sections that I do want to cover here. There's a section here called tips. Let's take a look at it. Feeling a little daunted about setting off, here are some suggestions to keep in mind. Number 1, find a toehold. Some landmarks and their clues will jump out at you immediately. Working with the clues you know is a good place to start your exploration. So we did an example of this from the first few trail tutorials. If you're confused where to start, just take a look at the clues and see if you can get a landmark on the board, and then you can use the signpost to interpret things. To that point, number 2, read the signs. Signposts will help you figure out nearby landmarks. Use them to your advantage. So after you've gotten a few landmarks on the board, you can try to interpret what the landmarks are to the neighbors and use these signposts to interpret them. So the main thing there is to remember the reversibility of the signposts and see if you can connect the clues to the ways that you have to change the landmarks. Number 3, take in the view. The trailheads will form a panorama, which will be related to the trail's name. You can use this to make progress on trickier trails. So every trail will have a panorama, which is the first landmark followed by the last landmark, called the trailheads. and that is a great way to sort of get a theme out of every trail, and also if you're having trouble interpreting a certain part of the trail, it could be another inroad to solve a trickier trail for you. Number 4, get your bearings. If you're feeling stuck, check your GPS for a little guidance. So the GPS is always available to you, and it will provide sort of a nudge in the right direction of that. If you're feeling a little confused, it can point you in the right direction, help you interpret signposts, find connections between landmarks and their clues. And if you're feeling really confused, it can help you to fill in some of the landmarks that are proving really tricky to you. Finally, there's a few finer points just to clear up in the interpretation of a trail puzzle. So each landmark will be one word, at least 3 letters long. So we saw that example. If we typed in a lower than 3 letters, like a 2-letter landmark, that's not going to show up in a trail. Landmarks in a trail are unique. So a landmark word like stove or hand is not going to show up in more than one place within each trail. Clues are sorted alphabetically by their clue text and grouped by the landmark length, longest landmarks first. So we went over this. The order in which the landmarks appear in the trail does not match the order in which the clues are represented. So they're in a particular order, and this is just stating that they're ordered alphabetically by the clue text, and they're grouped by the largest landmark clues first. A signpost will only have at most one direction, one letter in step. So this is just telling you a little corner case of you're not going to be asked to trade and pack at the same time. It's always only one direction. So you might be trading twice, but you're not going to do 2 different directions. Signposts in a trail may not use every kind of direction. So we saw this. We had a trail with only trades. We had some with trades, echoes, and packs, or all 4. Going between landmarks, a pack direction will only ever add or remove letters, never both. So this is a corner case with larger packs, just to state the point that in one direction you are toggling letters on, and in the other direction you are toggling the letters off. So you couldn't, for example, add an H and an N to get chant, and then remove an N again to get chat. So that is too complex to think about, and the main point is that in going in one direction, you are adding the number of letters indicated by the pack, and going in the opposite direction, you are removing those same letters. So you're never adding 2 letters and removing 1 letter. You're always toggling in one direction, toggling off in the other direction. A trail's panorama will be written as the first trailhead followed by the last trailhead. So this is just to clarify that when you're interpreting the panorama, it's the first followed by the last. Here's a list of GPS info provided by Signpost Directions. So we saw a few of the hints, but the hints that you will get for a different signpost will vary based on its direction. So a sort signpost will share the ends of the neighboring landmarks, so it will say a hyphen and then a letter. Trade will share the letter locations that change from both landmarks, so it might say the second letter in both words is going to change, or the second and fourth is going to change. For echoes, it's going to share the start of both landmarks. And for pack, it's going to share the letters that are toggled between landmarks. So it's going to say like A and B are being packed. And the GPS information for signposts will be displayed alphabetically. So this means when you see a hint and it states, like for pack, it says L and U are being packed. Like in the supply, we had L, P, U. Those are ordered alphabetically, so that's not necessarily stating that L, P, U are in that order. Same goes with echoes and sorts, that those are going to tell you the order in which they appear for the suffix and the prefix. and it's not necessarily telling you one's on the left or one's on the right. Travelog achievements are based on solving landmarks and using the GPS. You are not penalized for incorrect landmark guesses. So this is saying regarding the Travelog achievements and getting the little acknowledgement that you didn't use hints or the acknowledgement that you solved the panorama first. Those are only based on whether you use the GPS and the order in which you solve them. So if you don't use the GPS, but also you make a bunch of guesses that are not in the trail, that's still considered a perfect trek. All right. Last section, have fun out there. Lastly, but most importantly, don't forget to enjoy yourself. Tackling a trail can be tricky, but it's also really rewarding. Embrace the journey and go have some fun. All right, it's time to explore some trails. That is a look at the trail guide. And using everything in this section and watching this video, you should be able to you should be able to tackle any trail that comes your way. All right, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching.